So this video is going to be a little bit subtle in what we're going to be doing. I'm going to create something that is just a kind of visual effect in processing, and hopefully you get the idea of it fairly quickly. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to make a cup of coffee, and I'd like to just have the steam coming off of it, and I'd like to think about how we could program this in order to make it look like actual steam. So I've got some code here that is just setting up my window. So when I press play, it's set a certain size and it goes to a certain spot on my screen. I find it really annoying when it kind of goes into the middle of my screen, or I have to drag it over every time. So I'm doing size 700 wide, 850 tall, and then I can say surface.setLocation, and on my screen 720 minus 100 positions it here, which is quite nice. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a cup. I'm going to put in my draw loop, and I'm going to give this a background just to get us kicked off. So let's say background 255 for white. Lovely, and let's give that a play. Yep, so you've got a white background. Now what I want to do is I want to draw some kind of like table. So let's draw a table, and that will just be a rectangle at the bottom. So let's draw that at 0x. What is this, 700 long, so, or 700 high, so maybe something like 550, and then we'll have it 100, no, we'll have it the width of the screen, and we'll have it, what should we have it, 550, let's make it maybe 100, oh, 100, okay, let's just see what we get there. Oh no, sorry, it's 700 wide. It's 850. So let's let's keep that at 550, and let's make this 200. Cool. I'm going to draw this at -10. Oh, -10, and I'm going to go all the way up to width +10, so it actually goes off the screen, starts off the screen, goes off the screen, and then we'll fill this with a kind of browny colour, so maybe like 200, 100, 100. Will that give me a kind of... that was wishful thinking. I don't feel confident in my ability to just type in RGB values and be able to produce colours. I guess it's just going to get more and more grey, isn't it? Let's just do a grey. Let's be happy with a grey. Let's drop this down and let's make this 50. See what that looks like. Yeah, that'll do. Okay, so we've got our table here, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to place my cup on it. So we're going to maybe I should program the cup. I'm going to do my cup as a class, just so that I can have something to manage all the steam in. So I'm going to say, let's not put it in first. Let's make it just my brain is trying to jump 2 steps ahead, but I think it'll be less confusing for you if I do it this way. So I'm going to make a new tab, and I'm going to call it cup. And we are going to have a class called cup with a capital C. And when we make that cup, we're going to give it a starting position. So we're going to give it an X and a Y. They will be floating point numbers, so decimal numbers. Float X, float Y. And what we're going to do is we're going to say that the cup has a P vector of a data type P vector called pos, short for position. And we're going to set that pos to a new P vector. So we're going to make a new P vector, and we're going to give it X and Y. And what this will allow us to do is say things like this.pos.x or this.pos.y to target these X and Y positions. So A p-vector is just simply a data type that can store an x and a y position, and you can do some pretty handy maths with it as well. We're not going to do that for a cup because it's just going to be sat on this table, but I just like the way of working like that and keeping things in nice and tidy formats rather than having lots and lots of variables all kind of loose up here. So that's going to be our starting position. Now we need to work out how we're going to draw our cup. So I'm going to have a display method. So I'm going to say void display, and we're going to tell our cup how to draw itself. So up here I can say cup, and then in setup, it's best to do it in setup because that's where processing likes us to make new objects. So I'm going to say cup equals new cup, and it's expecting an x and a y position. So at the moment I'm just going to give it, where did we draw the table? 550 down. So let's give it 550, no sorry, 550 across, oh yeah, x, y, width, height. Okay, x, y, so let's just draw it in the middle of the screen. So width over 2, and, oh, not over s, over 2. So width divided by 2 will give us the midpoint of the screen, and then let's do 550 just to get it on the kind of top of the table. So we're going to pass in those two values. I know I said that there's floats, but I've passed in a seemingly integer here, but that's okay. Floats can deal with integers, but integers can't deal with decimal numbers, so it's best to set them as floats and be prepared for if they were to be a floating point number, which it could be if I was doing some kind of division like I am with width. Okay, so display, what are we going to do? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is draw a rectangle, and I'm going to draw that at this.pos.x and this.pos.y, and we also need to draw it at a specific size. So let's just for the moment try, I don't know, 40 and 40. Let's see what that looks like. Doesn't like this, missing a semicolon. Yes, I am. Always missing semicolons. There we go. That should be good. Okay, I haven't told it to fill a colour, so let's get it. Let's just have a white mug, so 255, just so that we can make it nice and simple and see it. Okay, I don't see it. That's because we're not telling it to display down here. We've made a new cup. Great, it makes a new cup, but we don't actually call this display method that we've written. So in our steaming cup, I'm going to pop in here. We're going to say cup.display. Now this really should be all the code we need to write in this bit here. We should be able to do everything else we need to do in the cup and in other classes that we make, but the high level stuff, we make a cup, well we say that we're going to make a cup, we then make a new cup, we then display the cup, and after having kind of made a window to draw it in, set the background and drawn a table. So this is the kind of essence of what we want to do, and then here, hey, we have a rectangle. Now this is a little bit small, so I'm going to make this at maybe let's say 80 wide by 130 tall. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, cool. So we're starting to look a bit cuppy there. Now when cuppy, is that a word? When I make this, I'm going to maybe make this at 500 rather than 550, just so that it's kind of coming off the table and creating a little bit of the almost getting to the illusion of 3D there. So we're no way near 3D, but I like to think we are. So let's just make this a little bit bigger, seeing it is going to be the kind of focus of our drawing here. So 120, maybe 180. How does that look? Okay, cool. So we've got a nice kind of base for our cup here. Now what I'd like to do on top of that rectangle is draw an ellipse. Now an ellipse is just a fancy word for an oval, but we're going to draw that at this.pos.x, this.pos.y, and we're going to make it, we want it to be as wide as the cup, so 120 wide, but we don't want it to be very tall, so maybe like 30 tall. And what we're going to do is this is going to form the mouth of our cup. So you can see here I just need to tinker with the positioning. So I think I just need to push it over. So if I do this.pos.x plus 60, because it's 120 wide, it looks like it's in the middle. So if I add 60, hooray! Look at that, we've put together a circle and a square and a rectangle, and we've been able to make what looks like a cylinder. We've cheated the system by using perspective. Okay, so if I put an ellipse here, do and may I do this.pos.y adds 180. So now I'm going to draw an ellipse first, draw a rectangle over that, then draw an ellipse on top, and that should give me, I wanted to give me like a little bottom to the cup, but I've got this line of my, actually, what I could do is, what can I do? What I could do is I could draw a, this could get a bit silly. Let's draw a rectangle after we draw that rectangle. And we're going to draw it with no stroke. So let's set the stroke up here to 0 for black. So stroke is the outline that we have on shapes. So I'm going to draw my mug and I'm going to turn the outline off, and I'm going to draw a rectangle at this.pos.x, this.pos.y. It's going to be the same width as our other rectangle, so 120, but it's going to only be like 3 pixels tall. And now I've just got to finally position it. So this.pos.x can stay the same. This.pos.y I'm going to add maybe like 179, because the other one's 180, so just one less, and I should hopefully, missing a semicolon, I should hopefully, hooray, okay, let's make it just a little bit thinner. This.pos.x add 1 maybe, and then make this something like 118, and I should now, yes, okay, I've managed to kind of cover up that line by creating a very thin rectangle and placing it over the top of that line. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. So we've got the body of our cup here. Now what I'd quite like to do is, maybe I should say, yeah, this is where it gets difficult. So I've got an ellipse here. What I'd like to do is put a kind of level of coffee in underneath. So what I can do is I can say on this one here, I can say no fill. Okay, so you can see I've got the top of the rectangle there. And then what I can do is I can, wait, I want to fill again down here. And then what I want to do is add in a smaller ellipse. But really I want to add it in, okay, let's just go for it. So let's grab this ellipse, the one we draw on the top, and let's give it a fill of, what's a good RGB for brown? No idea. Let's just, I'll fine tune that in a bit. You can look up your own color values if you want to. I'll go for, let's do 100 red, 100 green, and like 20 blue. And doesn't like this because I haven't put a semicolon, of course not. Okay, that color will do for now. Now I just need to kind of move this down a little bit. So I want to have this.pos.y, I want it to be kind of add, let's say, 5. This is, okay, yeah, that's almost there. It's just not quite right, is it? It's almost there. I just don't have the rim coming around the other side, which is slightly annoying. What have we got? A no-fill ellipse here, so yeah, that's going to be really difficult to cover up. Let's leave it. Okay, I've got a kind of a nice curve. Now the rim here I will come back to, but let's actually start doing something interesting. The last thing I'm going to do just before I do something interesting is put the handle on the cup, and I'm going to draw that before I draw the body of the cup. So I'm going to just write the handle of cup, and I'm going to make an ellipse. And that is going to be, now notice that I'm doing this.pos.x, this.pos.y for everything. This means that if the position changes, everything will stay relative to each other, which is really important. So I can, in my cup, I can change these numbers when I make the cup, and everything will just kind of shift along and not be too affected. I won't suddenly get my rectangle over here, but my ellipse over here. It will all just shift together nicely. So, and I'm going to draw that. That's going to be maybe a 100 tool. No, sorry. It's maybe going to be like 50 wide and 80 tool. And let's just see where that ends up. There. Okay, make it a little bit wider and a little bit taller. Let's do 80, maybe 120. And this.pos.x, I want to add, what's the width of the rectangle? 120. So add 120. Lovely. And this.pos.y we need to add a little bit to as well. So let's add maybe 40 to that and see if that comes down a little bit. Get in there. Maybe make that to 80. Okay, we have a handle. Now the last thing I need to do is just add in another ellipse, exactly the same as this one, but we're just going to make it a little bit smaller. So we're going to push it down. I don't need to change the X position, that can stay the same. The Y position is going to come down further. I'm going to push it down by maybe 10, and I'm going to take away 10 from the height. So this will be 100 because I'm going to do 10 from either side. And then this, do I need to scale down the width? Let's have a look. that did not go how I thought it would go. Why have I done Y plus 10? I need to do Y plus 70. Let's try that. Okay, maybe I need to do Y plus 90. Okay, so this is supposed to be the gap here. So that's the handle. The gap, if I start with Y90, let's maybe do this at like 90 tool. Okay, I think I need to, I know what's happened. I've not decreased the width, and so that's making it really weird. So let's do 60 wide and 100 tall. I've not really kept them in proportion, but that's okay. And then our Y position, let's just not shunt that down as much. Let's say maybe 85. Get in there. Can I just do 80? Will that just stay the same? I guess it's been drawn in the center. Okay, great. So now I've drawn my kind of handle there. Now I just need to do this. Now that's going to be annoying. Oh no, I didn't think about that. Oh no, I can do no fill. So in my gap, no, that won't work. This is okay. I've got I've got a hack. We can hack our way around this. So instead of pushing this down so far, let's do 250. Nope, way too much. 350. Can you see that I'm changing this and everything's moving? Yeah, that's because we programmed it cleverly. 380. Unlike this, that is just a massive hack that I'm doing now. So instead of worrying about having to put the table in the background behind the mug there, I've just moved the mug up the table so that the background is completely white. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to set a background color as a global. So color background color equals color 255. So if I was, so yeah, 255. So that's just going to make a white. And now if I copy this, I can put this in there. And I'm also going to fill this gap with that. So fill with our background color. Body of cup needs a fill of 255. And what this is going to do is, if I change the background, if I want to change the background, if I didn't have this, if I kind of take that out and I change the background to 100, I would get this gap and it would look really derpy. And so what I need to do is I need to put in this fill background color here as a constant, and so when I update my background it also updates this circle. Now I've got a no fill going on up here, and that's not making it look very good. What happens if I take that out? Okay, lovely, I don't need that. Okay, we're looking good. We're looking real good. I'm liking this. I'm really digging this vibe. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start adding in the steam. So we've got our cup. We know how to display it. We need to add some level of steam to it though. So we are going to create a list to store all of our steam in. So I'm going to say array list of data type, what should I call it? Steam? I'm going to say particle. Particles. No, let's call it steam. It's going to be an array list full of particles, and we're going to call it steam so that it doesn't get as confusing as it normally does. Okay, so let's just set it right here because we're going to be constantly adding to it and taking away from it. So that's going to be a new array list of data type particle, and we're going to put the rounded brackets on the end to tell it to do it, to make it. Now the data type particle doesn't exist, we need to write it. So we need to open up a new tab, and I'm going to call it particle. Okay, and I say class particle with a capital letter. And when I make a particle, oh my lord, particle, what am I going to give it? Well, I'm going to give it a... Do I want to give it an X and a Y position? Really what I want is a starting position. So yeah, let's give it the starting position of the... So I'm going to give it the P vector that we have from the cup of its starting position. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to have a position here. I'm going to say P vector position, and we are going to, when we first make a particle, we're going to update this position. So our X position, let's do float X is equal to starting position dot pos dot, no, sorry, I should just be able to say starting position dot X, add a bit of randomness, so random between, now what's the width? We need to pass in the width of the cup as well, which we'll just say is a float called W. So a random value between 0 and W. And so we can have a bit of steam generate from this corner here, because that's where we're drawing this square from and drawing these circles from. From this corner here all the way to here, we want to have a particle able to produce itself from any of these locations. So starting position dot X plus random W, and then we're going to say position equals new P vector, capital V on vector, with the coordinates of X and starting position dot Y. So the Y position is fine, that's where we want it to start, but we just want to add, and we can kind of tinker with that in a bit. Now when I make a new particle, I need to make sure I give it the starting position and the float. So let's come up here, let's say void make steam, and we're going to say particle P is equal to new particle, and we're going to give it this dot pos because it wants our position, and we're also going to give it our width, and I really should just keep our width as a variable up here. So float W equals, and what do we have? Where's our main rectangle? Here, 120. So let's say this dot W instead of 120, and let's put that there. And then I'm going to take this.w, and everywhere I see 120 that's in a reasonable position, I'm going to just replace it with that. So this can be this.w minus 2. And so this just makes our code a little bit more flexible, so I could really, I'm just aware of everything that's going on. So this.pos, and I can say this.w. And so I can give it the position and the width. Now, let's just do this. So void display. So in display, really, what I need to do is I need a function that right at the end says display Steam. And I'm going to say this dot, end it with a semicolon, and then up here, as well as make Steam, I need a way to display it. So I'm going to say void display Steam, and we are going to say for particle P in this.steam. So our Steam being this list of particles that we've got, our Steam particles, we are going to say particle or P dot display for now. Okay. We should also probably say P dot move as well. So it's going to need to be able to display itself and move itself. So make Steam, we're going to say this.steam.add, and we're going to add that particle P in. So now we are making Steam. So up here I need to tell it to make Steam. So this.make Steam. So when we make a cup, we're going to make the new Steam, and then we're going to make a particle and add it to that. Now we're just going to make one particle and get this particle real good before we make loads of them. So this is all good, this is all good. Okay, so let's go into our particle. We've made two things that we need to make, display and a move. Particle needs to know how to display itself and how to move itself. So we're going to have void display, and we're going to have void move. Now we are going to always be moving upwards. Yeah, let's just stick with upwards. Let's not worry about wind or any kind of sideways motion. Let's just say float r equals random. We're going to pick a random number between 0 and 2, and we are going to say this dot pos dot. Oh, call it position. Let's call it pos, just so it's consistent. This.pos.y plus equals r. Okay, and when we display it, what we're going to do is we're just going to very basically draw a circle to begin with. This.pos.x, this.pos.y, and it's going to be, let's give it a width. So float width equals 10, just to begin with, and then this dot w, shouldn't call it width because that's a reserved word. Float this dot w. Okay, cool. Semicolon, semicolon. I've written a lot of code and not tested it, and that makes me nervous. But hopefully, we haven't programmed anything too crazy, so this all should just work. I'm also just going to tell this to fill with white for the moment, just to make sure that I can see it. No, it's not happy. I haven't put a semicolon there. Unexpected token. Haven't put a semicolon there. Okay, cool. Our Steam particle is going downwards rather than upwards. I always get that round the wrong way. So let's minus equals that. Okay, we have a particle and it is going upwards, and it is starting at a random x position each time. Look at that. Okay, fantastic. So we have a single Steam particle that is being beamed out of our coffee. Amazing. What on earth are we doing with our time here? No, this is going to get good. Okay, so let's make a certain amount of steam. So let's make a integer called maybe let's just call it density, and this is going to be the amount of particles that we make to begin with. So our density I'm going to set to 100 to begin with, and I'm going to say for integer I equals 0, I is less than this dot density I plus plus, and we are going to make a new particle and we're going to add that new particle to this dot steam. So me just doing this, I've put in all the groundwork for everything else. So just because I've made 100 of these now doesn't mean that I need to add 100 more lines of code. Okay, I'm adding them all to this array. I'm looping through this array anyway and displaying and moving, and each particle is built in, knows how to display itself and how to move itself. And so really I should just be able to hit play and look at that, I have steam. Okay, they are all at the same kind of level at the same time, which isn't great. So really what I need to do is maybe make them gradually. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. Now we've got a little cloud coming out of our coffee at the moment. Now what I'd really like to do is make these steam particles start transparent, but also then kind of as they get up they fade out. So what we're going to do is we're going to have in each particle we're going to keep track of its transparency. And we're going to set that equal to begin with at like 100, and when we fill with 255, let's do 200. So 200, 200, 200. That's an RGB value. Okay, that will give us a red, green, blue color. But we can also add an A, RGB A, and that stands for alpha, and that is how transparent something is. So I'm going to put in this dot transparency, and we should notice it's slightly different. So you can see there already it's starting to look a little bit more interesting. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this to, every time it moves, I'm going to say this dot transparency minus equals R. No, that's too, let's pick another random number. So let's do it again, R equals random 2, and this dot transparency equals minus equals R. So we're going to reduce the transparency each time, and then we're going to do a check. We're going to say if this dot transparency, so if it's just disappeared, is less than 0, then actually what I want to do is I want to reset this particle. So let's make a function called, that should be this dot pos. Let's make a function called startup. I don't want to call it setup because we already have that in processing. And what we're going to do is we're going to record our starting position. So we're going to have a p vector starting position, and all we're going to do at the start here is just simply take the starting position and save it. So I'm going to cut this and paste it into startup. I'm going to say that this dot starting position is equal to starting position. So we're just going to copy that in to our particle, so it's going to know our starting position, and we also need a kind of boundary, if you like. So let's just call it boundary. So float boundary equals float boundary, and then we'll say this dot boundary equals W. Now when we then do it, we're going to say this dot startup, and this will get our position. So float x is equal to this dot starting position dot x add random this dot boundary. So any number between 0 and the boundary, which is just the width of the coffee cup. We saved the starting position, we saved the boundary when we first made our particle, and then we're going to say this dot position is a new p-vector at x and at starting position dot y. So this dot starting position dot y. So now I can use it there, but I can also, down here, I can say this dot startup. And I can say this, I can have float, I'm just going to call it T as a capital, as 100. And I'm going to say when I start up that this dot transparency is equal to this dot T. So T will be the transparency that we set all the particles to at the start, and then the transparency is going to vary. So this is a constant and this is a variable. So transparency is going to change over time, and then when we reset it and reset its starting position, we're going to also reset its transparency. Okay, moment of truth. Does this actually look good? This dot startup needs brackets after it. Getting too carried away. Okay, so you can see there that we've got steam, it's coming off the coffee and it is fading away. Now we can change the rate it's fading by changing the kind of randomness. So maybe if I drop this down to 1, we would get a higher rise of steam before it fades out. Now we also, it's kind of puffing. Why are we puffing? Because we are displaying that steam. Okay, so when the way we're making steam is maybe a little bit flawed. Actually, this is starting to spread out now. But really what I'd like to do is maybe the starting transparency isn't great either. Maybe let's drop this down to like 80. And let's just do more. What happens if we just do 1,000? Okay, we're starting to get somewhere. So now what I need to do is just think about the kind of frequency. We're getting a load just produced in the middle here, and it's not looking very clever. So what I want to do is, with my steam, really I need to distribute the values a bit more so that they're constantly around. So it does get there. This kind of randomly kind of spreads out. Some go faster than others, and now we're starting to see that they are being made in a bit more of a nice distribution. So you can see that that's 1,000 steam particles constantly just being recycled and coming out. Now this does make it look like it's boiling. So again, maybe we should start with a lower transparency, maybe try 50. Okay, so we've got a much shorter life. And now let's see if we can do something more clever with our Y position. So let's only display them if this dot pos dot y is greater. Do you know what? I'm going to pass in. How would I know this position? What's this position? It is cup, 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 cup. So my rectangle, this dot pos dot y. Okay, cool. Starting position dot y. Cool. So if this dot pos dot y is greater than starting this dot starting position dot y, then we're going to draw it. Otherwise, we're not going to draw it. And what that means is we can spread them out more and not worry about them kind of just going off the cup. Now look at this. This is cool. They've kind of uniformly distributed. There's way too many of them. It looks ridiculous. But we've got something that is actually looking pretty impressive, if I do say so myself. So maybe we can look at making this T when we first make it actually. Let's float T. let's set each particle to have a certain amount. So we're going to say this dot, oh no, I say this dot t is equal to random, and I'm going to set it from between 50 and 100. So now they should have a chance to get higher and not be so uniformly distributed. There's a very clear cutoff here, which I don't like. Now, anyway, let's focus on what I was doing. So I'm only going to draw it if it's bigger than this dot starting position dot y. And now this dot pos, I'm going to actually just change the game on this a little bit. This dot starting position dot y, let's cut that and let's put in a variable y. And just like we made a variable x, let's make a float y. I'm going to set that equal to this dot starting position dot y add random between, no, not add, yeah, add, definitely add random, and let's do maybe I don't know, 50. And now we're going to spread them out on the y-axis so they're not all starting from the same point. I've also given them a variance in how high they can go by changing t to a random number to start with when we first make the particle. So this dot t gets set once at the start, but we don't know what it's going to be. We do know it's going to be a value between 50 and 100. So now if I hit play, oh, it hates me because I don't put in semicolons. Now if I hit play, oh dear. My coffee is boiling. I've made what is a fairly cool boiling animation. So if this dot pos dot y is greater than this dot starting position, maybe let's do is less than this dot starting position dot y. Will that work? Yes. Okay. Look at this. Okay, this is looking more and more steamy. This is cool. I think my threshold for my steam is maybe a bit too much, so I'm going to drop this down to between 20 and 50. And let's see what that looks like. Okay, and let's just have less particles. I just think there's too many particles there. Let's maybe do 500. See how that looks. Maybe let's do 100. How does 100 look? A 100 just looks like bubbles. What if I did 2000? And let's change the y value that they can. So this dot start position dot y plus random 50. Let's do 150. And let's just drop the threshold down a little bit. So if this dot pos dot y is less than starting position dot y, add 10. Let's see if that looks any better. Yeah. Okay, what happens if I do like density of like 10,000? Okay, probably could have guessed that wouldn't look great. It is interesting though. The more circles we have, the more it looks like steam. Maybe the width is just too much. Float x equals this dot starting position dot x. Add 10, add a random amount between this dot boundary minus 10. Will that kind of clamp it in a little bit? This dot boundary minus 20. Okay, yeah, kind of. I think the trouble is that there's so many that the random distribution isn't random anymore. There's just loads of it. This does look like it's on boil. It's like it's boiling. Maybe I should have done a sauce fin animation or something. I was hoping for something a bit more with more pizzazz. I think what I do need to do is in move, if I If transparency, so our random 1, let's do random 0.2. So let's pick a random number. Let's give them a bit more of a lifespan. Oh my lord. Okay, maybe they don't need a bit more of a lifespan. Maybe that's too much. Float r equals this. Okay. If there weren't so many of them, I think this might start to be more realistic. So let's just do 1,000 rather than 10,000. Maybe 10,000 was a little excessive. So we can see that that's kind of, yeah, 1,000 particles is just making it look like it's boiling a little bit. And 0.2, they're surviving too long. It's kind of maybe getting a little bit too high. Let's try 5,000. It's really annoying me. I've done this before and I've made it look pretty snazzy. This is not looking great. Actually, what I could do is I could make them darker to begin with. When I draw the particle, if I fill this with like 100, 100, 100, make it a darker grey. Oh no, it's on fire. Okay, no, that wasn't a good idea. Let's maybe try 150. And this 0.2 is just bananas. Let's do maybe 0.5. And let's just do a few less. Let's do maybe just 2,000. Okay, I think I will leave it there. I've drawn a cup and I've drawn steam coming out of that cup, and I think that is a fairly reasonable animation. If you saw that in a game, I don't think you would be too dissatisfied with it. I don't think it's programmed as well as I could do it, but I think without a lot of tinkering, it's just not going to come along. But by making this less bright, I think it's definitely made it look more like steam. By dropping how transparent it starts, that's definitely had an effect on it. In fact, maybe I'll drop this to like 10, a value between 10 and 50, so that some of them can die real quick, and some of them will last quite long. A nice big range there. So yeah, this is, as you can see, there are loads of variables here that you can play with and try and get this to look like steam. I'll leave that to you to try and fix and maybe make a more steamy contraption. But I think actually, for what is essentially just drawing circles and making them more transparent, that's a pretty good job. Sweet.